Hello everyone and welcome over to the DMSide. Now keeping the similar setup from the previous video because in editing I saw that I heard that the recording was a lot cleaner. So I'm hoping that it stays that way. The big difference for today is I'm filming during the day opposed to midnight basically. So there will be cars going by. I want to see how much this mic picks up and that mic picks up, and see how much that really affects, because filming during the day does open up the possibility for more videos to be made or future videos to be made sooner. So now we've got that out of the way, welcome to today's video. We are going to be looking at dragons as we move through our monster manual list of monsters that I believe you should definitely use in your campaign. The big difference for today is that these dragons are not the classic dragons of your metallic or your chromatic. These are monsters that are classified as dragons, but obviously could be slightly different. So, as always, give this video a thumbs up if you are enjoying it. It does help the channel out. Comment down below your favorite dragon from today's video. And if you are still on the fence, consider subscribing for more D&D content. Let's get into it. Okay, so jumping straight into it, our very first dragon for this list is the great king of the ocean, the dragon turtle. Now, DMs, these are not creatures that you will find in your low-level campaigns, and in some cases will actually struggle to place them in your high-level campaigns should your story really take place more inland. And that's really just a geographical thing, but it does give you a lot of options should you be on the sea. Now, the dragon turtles are known along the Sword Coast to be quite intelligent creatures, and in some cases, pirates will actually parley with them and offer them gold and treasure in return for safe passage, or they can even, in a sense, hire them or promise them continuous amounts of food and treasure and gold, so that way they will stop intruders from coming into their waters and perhaps finding their secret base. Now, in the most dangerous, or what I believe is the most dangerous official campaign book that has been released in 5th edition so far, Tomb of Annihilation, you actually can encounter a dragon turtle where you and your very low level 1 party, or level 3 depending on how you decided to introduce them into the story, actually can take a boat up to the top of the peninsula, saving themselves some time. However, when they run into the dragon turtle, it demands that they pay up any and all gold that they have. Now, to be fair, my advice, should your players actually go into this encounter, you pay the piper. This dragon turtle will most definitely kill them. And that book is not afraid to put extremely daunting and difficult tasks in front of your players right from the get-go. However, another great example of a dragon turtle being used inland in an official book and not being too overpowered is in the Princes of Apocalypse storyline. Now, in this story, if you go to the Water Cult's underground lair, you actually do run into, or can run into, a dragon turtle. Now, I believe it is either a younger dragon turtle because its size is actually quite smaller. A regular dragon turtle is gargantuan, whereas I believe this one is, I think it's large or possibly huge. The fact is it has to fit underground somehow. And so this allows your lower party campaign. In some cases, they should enter this cult area, I think around the level 5, level 6 mark. So the actual dragon turtle itself is still very dangerous, don't get me wrong, but it's much more manageable for a low level campaign. So DMs, as a side note, you really could use this as inspiration should you wish to put the dragon turtle in your campaign. Just make it a younger version. Unfortunately, the dragon turtle doesn't have younger forms like the regular dragons. There's no young dragon turtle, adult dragon turtle, and ancient dragon turtle. There is just dragon turtle. But that doesn't mean you can't look at the dragon's stat blocks, see what they've taken out, and then kind of replicate that for your dragon turtle. Now, DMs, if you want to run these in your campaigns, or you really want to spice up that pirate life and you think that a kraken is probably just a bit too tough, or the trope of a kraken has been overused, then I would highly encourage you to throw a dragon turtle straight at your party and see what they do. Coming up second on our list is probably the closest dragon on the dragon list that resembles a true dragon, and that is the shadow dragon. Now, these creatures can be either chromatic dragons or metallic dragons. It doesn't really matter. And there are two ways for them to actually be born into the world. The first way is for literally a dragon egg to hatch in the Shadowfell. It will be devoured by the necrotic and dark energy of the plane and shift and change it into a shadow dragon. I'm not entirely sure how metallic dragons will change in their alignment being born in the Shadowfell, but I do know that should a dragon find itself in the Shadowfell and stay there for a long period of time, over time, the second way that this creature can actually be born into the world is through prolonged exposure to living in the Shadowfell. So you might find that some of your dragons actually fly around and fly through a rift into the Shadowfell and could find themselves stuck there. And then the negative energy that is in the Shadowfell will slowly twist and change their nature, changing the color of their scales from whether it be red or gold, it doesn't matter, moving them into a dull, dark gray. Then really it does actually change their entire persona. So I guess if an egg is born, hatched there from a good-natured dragon, it would probably still come out as relatively evil. In the sense that what happens there is they now deal necrotic damage. So all their breath weapons change from whether it's fire, water, electric, air, poison, or acid, or anything like that. They change to a full-on necrotic breath weapon. They gain this ability known as the living in the shadows. And so what that means is when a shadow dragon is actually obscured or is in dim light, whether it be shadows or down underground in the caves, they actually do have, I believe it's resistance to all damage types. So that makes these dragons quite strong and formidable. A long time ago when I first started DMing and I read about these shadow dragons, I was beginning to build a homebrew session where what I wanted to happen was for a gold dragon to have gone into the Shadowfell, been lost there, and then to have come back out as this unfortunate negative evil creature that is still battling with its good side, but now has this this necrotic edge to it, almost like has two personalities stuck within inside of it, the good fighting with the evil, and for the players to then flesh it out, the story, and try and save the creature. Whether that was possible, I hadn't really decided on, but you could do something very similar with your characters. I know that if you're running the Rise of Tiamat or the Tyranny of Dragons series, a lot of players really want to, in the very first session, take the eggs from the first chapter and try and hatch them. It's a very common trope. I mean, when do you get a chance to have a dragon egg and try and hatch it and have a pet dragon? What you really could do is you could possibly allow that, but have the dragon escape and run away, and then eventually be lost in the Shadowfell to then change and shift and come out. And it could be a good-natured dragon. Maybe your players were changing its alignment through their upbringing, but then this happens. And so now you have a dual fight coming between the innermost battling natures of the dragon that they have hatched. Now, luckily for you DMs, one of my favorite things about the Shadow Dragon is that you can actually have it for any level of your campaign. The best part is the fact that it really is another type of dragon. So we already have Wormling stat blocks all the way up to your Ancient Dragons. If you're running a low-level campaign and they're level 1, 2, or 3, have a Wormling dragon, Shadow Dragon, attack your party. Now, it will still be quite difficult, but it will introduce them to this new type of dragon. Or, should you be later down the track, have it come out as a huge adult dragon. And all of a sudden, again, it has changed. The best part is, yes, your players can go into the Shadowfell and they can see them. That encourages planar travel, or vice versa, they could come out into the world and be causing havoc. So I would encourage you, definitely throw a Shadow Dragon at your players if you want to change up the dragon trope. Continuing on down our list of dragons, we have the cousins of the dragons, which are known as the Wyverns. Now, Wyverns are these large beasts that have huge wings with their arms attached to them, and they look very similar. From a distance, you won't really be able to tell what is a dragon and what is a Wyvern until it gets closer and closer. And then the defining features begin to change and shift, and you realize that this Wyvern has a long, piercing tail, similar to a scorpion's, and that its maw is just as great as a dragon's. However, its arms attached to its wings. These creatures are still very dangerous. Now, when I first played Dungeons and Dragons, my very first party actually TPK'd because we got too up ourselves about being able to defeat a Wyvern, not realizing their battle style was very different. Now, a dragon will fly in and out of battle using its claws, its bite attacks, and its tail attacks when in close combat, swooping out to then use a breath weapon to cover the field. However, a Wyvern does not have a breath weapon, and its arms are attached to its wings, so it does have a claw attack and a tail attack with its stinger. But the difference here is a Wyvern, though not super intelligent like a dragon, they are definitely more bestial. They do understand how to fight and survive. They will fly straight down, hovering about 10 feet above, keeping out of range from your melee fighters, and then springing at them with their stinger that has a 10-foot reach, causing them to take poison damage, and sometimes being diseased and poisoned in the process, to then take ongoing damage, which could really cause a lot of troubles for your party that thinks that they can just take it out because they just took out a dragon. You need to understand these creatures, though related, are very different and can be very dangerous. Throw your Wyvern, your next Wyvern, at the top of a tower, terrorizing a town. Have your players go up there thinking everything will be fine. The Wyvern strikes with its poison tail, picks up another player and throws them from the tower. It'll be a very different battle. And the best part is it's good for your lower levels. Somewhere around level 5 is quite a difficult Wyvern fight, but it can be very, very fun and it can be very challenging. Once you get to your high levels, I would suggest more the regular dragons or more than one. Rather than beefing up one creature, it's always really good to add multiples, not to the point that it's overwhelming, but to the point that it is challenging. But a Wyvern will be very good in your next campaign. Moving on, we have something that is definitely more like a lizard, I guess you could say, but is definitely amongst the dragons in the monster manual. And the best part is, if your players want to have a different type of mount, there is a chance that they could perhaps have this creature, the Guard Drake. Now, the Guard Drake is created not through means of reproduction, but these disgusting rituals. I believe they can reproduce now, but the general lore of them is that to create a Guard Drake, you needed to have quite a lot of different materials and all thrown into this big melting pot. And then you need at least 10 scales of the Guard Drake that you wish to create. Once the liquid solidifies into an egg, after the ritual has been performed, it will then take some time of incubation for it to hatch. Once then hatched, you would need to imprint with the creature, and that way you will have this forever bond, and you will be its master / possibly you ride it, or it protects you in battle. But the Guard Drakes are very good for low-level campaigns. They are really, really fun. They're also great creatures to fight. They do have a good bite attack and decent amount of health for your levels 1 through to 3. And on top of that, each Guard Drake of a different color, similar to the dragons, has a different ability. So your black and I believe your green Guard Drakes have the ability to, they have a swimming speed as well as taking resistance to the damage of their colored types. So the black, I believe, is resistant to acid damage. The green, I would believe, is resistant to poison damage. Then you have your red Guard Drake, which has a climbing speed, then naturally less damage against fire. You have your blue and your white Guard Dragon, which have the ability to, they have a burrowing speed on top of taking less damage to lightning and cold damage. So depending on where you're headed, you could even think, okay, well, if we're going to a more frozen wasteland, let's see, horses may not be the best bet. Why don't we try and get some Guard Drakes and even have a ritual performed for us, so that way we can have some white Guard Drakes, and that way they are resistant to the cold damage and will possibly be able to travel for longer, depending on how you as a DM would like to run that. I know there are rules around how long you can actually travel for in terms of exhaustion, and then it really depends on the landscape that you're putting your players on. But a Guard Drake is a very interesting creature. It has a really cool backstory and lore. You can really have your players go on quite a long mission to actually collect the materials needed and then have them be part of the ritual, because they would need there to have the imprinting process done once the egg actually hatched after incubation. And then there's the problem of, will the egg hatch and how does that actually work? So there's a lot of work to be done with it, but there is a lot of fun and a lot of storytelling to go along with them. Our final dragon, I know the video is already so close to being finished. Our final dragon for this list is probably one of the more cheeky ones. They're very playful, very fun, and they really aren't, I wouldn't say evil, they're completely neutral, to be fair, more chaotic neutral. They're known as the Fairy Dragons, and they are actually quite small. I believe that in real life, if you were to give a size, I think they're roughly about yay big, about half the size of a humanoid. But as they grow older, they do get bigger and they gain more abilities. Now, the Fairy Dragon, as I mentioned before, are tricksters. They just really enjoy playing tricks on travelers. They all have the innate ability to turn invisible. They, I believe, have can make a telepathic link to creatures that are within a certain distance of them. And most of the time, they will just play around and try and steal things from your players, try and move things around from them, and lead them along the wrong path. But in saying that, though they don't have a high AC and high health, they do have the ability to cast spells. Now, each of them has a different color, as you would naturally with all the dragons, but they're all the colors of the rainbow. They're your red, orange, yellow, green, purple, indigo, violet is purple, and I think I said blue. So yeah, what is it? It's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. All the colors of the rainbow. And for each color, they have a different ability, and I believe they have a little bit extra health here and there. So your red ones actually have Dancing Lights, Mage Hand, and Minor Illusion. Then you've got the yellow, which comes with Color Spray. After that, your orange comes with Minor Images. From there, you get green with Suggestion, blues with Major Image, and your indigo has hallucinatory terrain. Finally, I believe the violet is the big one that gets polymorph, and the thing is, that was the actual order how they go. So the violet Fairy Dragon has polymorph and everything else mentioned before. So it's almost like as they grow up, they can actually change color and they can actually gain these abilities as well. How would you use them in your campaign? One of the great ways to do it really is when you're down in the Underdark and your players are trying to find their way out. You could have Fairy Dragons either take their favor and show them the way, or be the tricksters they are and lead them further down into the Underdark, possibly causing them to be stuck there for months longer. Another way you could do it is if your players were to travel to the Feywild. Say you're in the Plains traveling district now that you're a higher level. Your players could go to the Feywild, and there you would see many creatures, and amongst them, the Fairy Dragon. Again, usually as guides and leaders, and if your players can speak Draconic, then there is a chance they'll be able to ask them for actual assistance and things like that. But don't count them out. If you think that you would like to have something a bit more magical that can play tricks on your players rather than just things such as pesky goblins or gnomes or something like that, then I would suggest the Fairy Dragon. Now, before we wrap this up, we have two honorable mentions for today's video, and the first is the Pseudo Dragon. A Pseudo Dragon is similar size and build to the Fairy Dragon, however, less magical. One of the best things about it is you really can take it as a familiar, and they are really helpful. You can have a Pseudo Dragon fly in and use the help action if you're a wizard, and that will actually help you gain advantage on your attacks. It's a really good wombo combo almost. On top of that, the Pseudo Dragon has a little stinger similar to the Wyvern, where it can attack your enemies or your players and cause them to actually fall unconscious should they fail their Constitution saving throw by, I believe it's 5 or more, which is actually quite huge and in some cases can come in really clutch. So the Pseudo Dragon as an enemy can be very cool, but players, if you're listening in on this video, I would suggest taking it as a familiar because it can be very helpful. Our second honorable mention is the granddaddy of dragons. He is known as Clouth. Now, if you have read into any Sword Coast lore, you would perhaps come across the name of Clouth, and there are many named dragons, ancient dragons in the world of D&D. There's another one known as Old Gnawbone, which isn't her real name. There is a whole nother name that is much longer and much more ancient. So I'm going to go with the given nickname. But Clouth is much greater than Old Gnawbone. Clouth is an ancient red dragon who is enormous, gargantuan obviously, but the size is much larger than gargantuan, and he basically controls quite a lot of the Sword Coast without ever really coming into play. He is this great ancient red dragon who has wands strapped around him that he can use during battle, which I think is one of the coolest things. I love this idea that this intelligent magic using ancient red dragon has gone and amassed all these wands of fireball, wands of magic missile, you know, or what other wands are there? There's so many different types that you could do. You could even make your own should your players for some reason ever challenge him. But that's the thing. He's difficult to put into a campaign because basically level 20 characters would be where he could be your end game, your real end game. The great ancient red dragon Clouth of the North will be the end of your story, because I just don't see where else you could use him. He does or can come up in the Storm King's Thunder campaign, where he is a mere conduit. He provides your players with a mode of transportation. However, it is expected to be returned, and if you don't, then your players are pretty much all going to die because he will come and murder them all. But Clouth is a great honorable mention, and I hope you have enjoyed this video. Check out these videos. I believe they pop up here or they pop up here. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment below what your favorite dragon is, even if it is one of the regular chromatic or metallic dragons. I'd love to hear about them. Tell me where they came up in your story. So next week, we are going to be looking at the giants. I'll see you there.